Why do we value human life the way we do? And why do we see human beings not only as valuable, but we see life as sacred? And what is the connection between the source of values and the state of our human rights? We're going to talk about these issues and more on today's edition of Truth for a New Generation. Hi, Alex McFarland here. Welcome to another edition of Truth for a New Generation. You know, one of the unique things about the Christian worldview, a biblical view of life, is how we see fellow human beings. In the biblical worldview, all life is seen as sacred because people are made in God's image. And we're called to show respect and dignity to other people because all human beings are valuable. All life matters because we're made in the image of God. And the Bible is clear. When we do something good for another person, it's as if we've done it to the Lord. And Jesus said, when you give a cup of cold water in my name, it's as if you've done it to me. Now, what's so exciting about our nation, the United States of America, is America was predicated on these values, the bedrock values of what is called the Judeo-Christian worldview. Now, in the Old and New Testaments, life is seen as sacred. And this was part and parcel to the worldview of the founders of the country. Now, in America, we didn't always get it right. Admittedly, while we were a nation in which all persons are created equal, we didn't always get it right. And the good news is, though, that pains were taken and steps were undertaken to correct that. But I want to take you back to March 28, 1836, because that's a day, a very infamous day, actually, because on that date, Roger Taney, T-A-N-E-Y, Roger Taney was sworn in as Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. This relates to our modern era, and I'll explain why. But the Taney Court, under Roger Taney as Chief Justice, famously adjudicated in the Dred Scott decision that blacks were not persons, thereby condemning tens of thousands of African Americans to servitude and slavery. And ultimately, the Dred Scott decision would lead to the costliest war in U.S. history, the Civil War. Now, what's interesting is the very same logic by which the Taney Court, in defending slavery, legitimized it or attempted to legitimize it by arguing that blacks were not fully human beings, that very same logic is used to support abortion today. In the Roe versus Wade decision, part of the way that it was defended, and even to this day attempted to be legitimized and rationalized, is that the unborn are not fully persons, and therefore they don't have the constitutionally protected God-given rights that human beings are said to unequivocally enjoy. Now, here's the thing. Even in the life of Taney during his time on the Supreme Court, he was ridiculed for this decision. Pamphlets were circulated calling him the unjust judge. And the Dred Scott decision led him to be estranged from former colleagues, friends, and even some family members. Now, fortunately, we later would get it right, and the Dred Scott decision would be reversed. And obviously, all ethnicities, and certainly Black Americans, people everywhere, should be acknowledged as being fully human, made in the image of God, persons possessing inherent, unimpeachable worth and dignity, personhood. But let's think about this. Look, if Dred Scott was wrong, then abortion is wrong because persons have rights. If abortion is right, as understood through Roe versus Wade, 1973 forward, look, if abortion is legitimate, then the Dred Scott decision was legitimate. And part of what's wrong in so many levels of our society right now is we're not being consistently logical. We're certainly not applying the law consistently, and we're certainly not making laws and living under laws that are in sync with the biblical worldview, the Judeo-Christian worldview of our founding. Now, on these shows, we've talked much about natural law and the objective truth that is known to all people. It's written on the hearts of people. It's revealed explicitly in the scriptures. And you know, even Aristotle, 200 years before Christ, Aristotle said the laws of nature and the objective moral truths are bound on all people, and they are not true dependent on anybody's acceptance of them. People can reject the sanctity of human life, but that doesn't make human life any less sacred. Now, fortunately, Dred Scott was overturned, but if we're going to have the free republic that we've enjoyed and maybe even taken for granted, once again, we're going to have to commit ourselves to the view that human life is sacred. Now, when we come back, we've got a great interview with somebody who's giving his life to save the lives of others. Don't go away. Stay tuned to this edition of Truth for a New Generation.
Man, before I came to Charis, I was so broken.
I dealt a lot with anxiety and depression.
I didn't really realize I could have an actual relationship with God.
When I came here, I started to see God like, you know, he just wants to have a relationship with me. It totally transformed the way I look at God.
God longs to have fellowship with you.
This is where faith comes from. It's not just head knowledge, Bible school knowledge, it's revelation knowledge that changes you.
Just been set free from a lot of the bondage I was in.
I haven't been depressed in so long.
Pretty awesome having that just weight lifted and putting on Jesus' yoke.
You come here and you meet God personally, and then he gives you a whole new direction.
This is a time, this is a season of your life that God's wanting to show you who you really are and what he's wanting to do in your life.
If you have a desire for Bible college, God's the one that put it there.
If you're considering coming to Charis, I just want to say it's going to be one of the best decisions you've made in your life.
Welcome back to Truth for a New Generation. We're talking about the sacredness of human life, and the Bible says, blessed is the man that would lay down his life for his friends. Well, you're about to meet a very exciting guest because he definitely puts himself in harm's way for the benefit of others. Mark, we'll call him. Not his real name, but we're going to call him Mark for security purposes. He kind of reminds me of like Indiana Jones, or I guess more appropriately, John Rambo, going into the most dangerous parts of the world to save lives. And his website is Lantern Rescue, and we'll talk about that. But I want to say, Mark, welcome to Truth for a New Generation, but even more importantly, thank you for what you do for fellow human beings around the world.
Hey, we're excited to be here, excited that we can be on your show, Alex. This is a first for us, first for me to be in a TV interview. We don't often do that, but I appreciate your staff and crew working with us to do this show so we can share about our ministry and share what God's doing in the fight against human trafficking.
So I got to ask you, and you and I have been colleagues for some years. You're a successful business person. You and your dear family, you have a great life in America. So why do you go to the most dangerous parts of the world to put yourself in legitimate danger to rescue people? Why would you do that?
Well, first I'll say I am blessed to work with some amazing people, okay? And as mentioned, we are responding to a call that God has put on our life. We're trying to use our skill set to rescue those who are in need. You know, your show so far has been discussing the nation and the direction that we are taking, in this, you know, especially in the fight against sanctity for life. When I think of that, Isaiah chapter 1, the vision that Isaiah had, you know, when he was calling out to Judah to clean up their act, he told them how to do that. And he basically said, learn to do what's right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, and plead the case of the widows. And I mean, that was the cry out to the nation. And so God cares about oppressed people. It's not about just human trafficking. I know that's a buzz right now.
Yeah.
It's a topic people want to talk about. I mean, I hear people call it a social injustice, and I cringe.
Yeah.
You know, it is a sin that has occurred in nations for thousands of years, and it's occurring in our nation. It's occurring around the world. We're losing the battle. In 2001, Interpol estimated that human trafficking was profiteering about $19 billion a year, right? If you go to the statistics now and the studies now, they're saying it's a $150 billion industry. It's surpassing the drug industry and the drug cartels. And so, you know, it's a war. I mean, we're in a fight.
What are the different ways that, quote, human trafficking manifests itself?
Human trafficking still manifests itself in slavery, domestic slavery, you know, especially in the Asia-Pacific region, sex trafficking, sex slaves, organ trafficking, and a lot of other that we deal with in West Africa even recently is forced brides. You know? And so, you know, those are some of the primary forms that, you know, we're trying to fight. And the way we do that, Land and Rescue is a U.S.-based operation that works internationally. We don't work in the States. We work overseas. We work with the foreign governments at the highest levels that we can. We help them to establish a counter-human trafficking task force that's trained by us, supported by us, to operate in that region of the world, in their own country. And we develop intelligence teams. And since you're a Christian show, here's the truth of the matter. Most of these operating units are Christians.
Right.
Especially the intelligence side. A lot of Christian pastors, a lot of heroes in my life that, man, I could take show after show and tell you about these amazing men and women who, man, they risk their life. I get to leave the country. I know you asked about us. And yes, we do a lot of risk and take on a lot of high risk because we work in areas that are volatile. We work in conflict areas. We work in places that just others don't go. But these are the real heroes. You know?
Yeah, and like you said, former law enforcement and former military, I've spoken on a lot of military bases. There are a lot of Christian people in the military.
Right.
A lot of Christian people in law enforcement and first responders and EMTs and things like that. And let's emphasize the connection that, I mean, when you believe in God and you believe in morality and you believe people are made in God's image, it's just a natural outflow that you will advocate for fellow human beings, isn't it?
It is. You know, one of the interesting things about our country that you've probably seen and I've seen is that we have, because of the Judeo-Christian foundation, we have established a country where people can be free of want, free of fear, and free to live a life of dignity. We've accomplished that better than anything else. Right?
And what we have is so unique in world history.
Right. And so, so when we look at what we have been able to provide in this nation, it is because of the Christian view of human life that we can go all the way back to Governor William Bradford, who, you know, and we could establish that argument from that point forward, you know. And it really is the Christian view of human life that protects us here in this country, gives us human security that is not available in other countries. I mean, they are not free of want, they are not free of fear, and they are not free to live a life of dignity.
How much do the foreign governments cooperate with you when you say, look, we want to do this, this, and this, and save lives? The countries that weren't based on a biblical worldview initially, like we in America have been, how do they cooperate with you?
This is one of the miracles of God's favor for our team and our unit. I will say that specifically. God gives us favor with foreign governments. And, you know, foreign governments are often very corrupt.
I know.
But, you know, part of our matrix development is to weave a network of those that are Christian, those that want to establish a network of hope in their country, and we help bring that to fruition. We weave it together, and then we get busy. And those that are corrupt in those governments, we pray with them, or, you know, over time, if I can give the opportunity to give them the gospel, I will. I'm not afraid to. You know, and so so far, we're really embraced, which is really unique because of some of the areas we work in, such as even West Africa. I just got back from West Africa, and really due to a Christian hero in that country region, who I've shared about on other shows. I mean, for 4 months, this guy tried to rescue kids, was arrested every day, right? He had watched his sister's children taken by Boko Haram, and she died of a stroke. And I shared about this on another show. And he was so compelled to do something, he just sold kerosene. That's all he did. He was just a little businessman. But he went to the border and was trying to rescue kids. And after 4 months of being arrested, dropped back in his capital and told, don't come here, we will handle this problem. And they, he said, but you're not. After 4 months, the inspector general brought him into his office and said, why are you doing what you do? And he told him. And what resulted was that they put him in charge of human trafficking for their country and over the police that used to arrest him. So, I've been there about 10 days with him. I said, tell me about this policeman. He said, oh, well, this is the cop that most used to arrest me the most.
That reminds me of Mordecai and Haman in the Old Testament,
Right.
God elevates the one that was once oppressed.
Right. So the open door there is we're doing a lot of operations along the borders there in West Africa. Trying not to say too much here, but intercepting children every day.
Well, let me throw something out. I want your perspective on it, Mark. I would say the greatest juggernaut that mitigates against our high ethic of human life has been abortion. And in 1973, the Roe versus Wade decision, two things, said a woman has a right to abort a baby because it's a right to privacy. And of course, that's illogical. But up until this very day, when I've done Zoom calls and before COVID was doing talks on college campuses, I mean, instantly people will say, well, it's not a person. So they deny the full personhood of the unborn. What is the connection in your mind between no government protection for the unborn and the loss of human rights of people throughout America and around the world?
Not only is abortion the absolute worst form of human trafficking, it is also the catalyst to sex trafficking. And here's why.
Okay.
Because unchecked population control, like we have in India and China and places around the world that abort females primarily, because of the religious ideologies and beliefs, the female's not worth as much, and so, they abort that daughter. When that happens, that creates a population of men, right?
Yeah.
And particularly, let's just take India in case, that has 40 to 60 million more men than women. Well, they traffic girls from Nepal, Bangladesh, everywhere around. They consume all around because these men have...
It's a product.
Right. They have their sexual urges and they want to have it, and there's not as many women. So not only is abortion the worst form of human trafficking, it's a catalyst for sex trafficking because we create this demand,
And it's also contributing, using abortion as birth control, or gender control.
Right. Yeah, that's a big one.
I mean, it's another show for another day, perhaps, but it's causing certain ethnicities to go extinct.
Yeah.
And I mean, we hear so much about, culture and valuing culture, and yet the very same people that would be the champions for the legalization of abortion, they're helping eliminate cultures. I mean, they're causing the extinction of certain ethnicities. So let me ask you this. Has unrestrained abortion caused America to have a diminished view of the value of human life?
100%. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm often shocked that we want to talk about human trafficking and sex trafficking so much in America, and yet talk so little about abortion. Is that not almost a bizarre conversation? That you can sit in a room full of liberal thinking,
We're very selective in what just causes we'll get on the bandwagon of.
Right. We do. We tend to major on minors in America. I'll never forget when we went after the tobacco smokers and just bypass the drunk drivers,
Oh, exactly.
And the alcohol and the marijuana and the drug. I mean, we just, America tends to do that, but it is shocking.
Is human trafficking surpassing the drug cartels in their economic muscle?
It is, and what people don't understand is that the drug cartels are a well-greased crime syndicate. They know our justice system in and out. They know law enforcement. They know the tax implications of the countries they work in. They've been doing this for a long time. So to add another product, which is a girl, a victim, to add another product, which is also a reusable product, they've already got those smuggle lines. They've already got those traffic routes. They've got everything, figured out. And so it's surpassing, but it's almost an addition to, because every time we take a border operations, for instance, and we work that border operation, most often you're going to run into drugs, guns, along with minors, you know.
And, you know, I got to say this in the interest of time. There's funding, there's a lot that I hope people will learn about what you're doing. And your website, again, is
lanternrescue.org.
lanternrescue.org. But it's also a spiritual battle, and churches can pray and intercede. And as you quoted the Bible, taking up the cause of the widow and the fatherless, among other things, people can fast and pray for God to intervene on behalf of people. And I want you to speak to this, God cares about the least and the lost. Every human life matters to God, doesn't it?
Every single one. I've seen God miraculously work in ways with foreign governments, provide funding, provide the right doors, the moment in time, just for one kid. For one kid.
Yeah.
There's no limit to what God will do for one.
Yeah. How can people be praying for you, Mark?
Continue to pray that we have the favor and protection in foreign places that we work in. Continue to pray for the girls that are rescued. We facilitate the aftercare. Most importantly, we want them to have the gospel, you know, because that is the great healer in their life. And pray for those victims, and then just continue to pray for our funding, you know.
Yeah, and for your safety. I admire you, and I commend what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate, you know, what you do, and thank you for being a voice of truth.
Wow. Well, life is sacred, and God is our creator, and we're all accountable to God. We got to come back, and we're going to pull away for just a moment. Stay tuned for more of this edition of Truth for a New Generation.
I just returned from a conference at the Cove, and it was absolutely breathtaking in every way. The mountain views, the tranquil areas within the woods, and just being alone with God. Mornings spent watching the sunrise from a rocking chair with coffee in one hand and my Bible in the other. Evenings spent reflecting on the incredible spiritual teaching. It's the embodiment of peacefulness. Come and experience the Cove for yourself.
Welcome back to the program, this important subject of the sanctity of human life. You know, back to the subject of the Dred Scott decision. Had the court ruled otherwise and not taken away the personhood of Black Americans with a court decision, you know, we might have averted the Civil War, at least averted the extreme cost of the Civil War. But I want to quote Lincoln. And again, America is the only nation that has fought an internal civil war with itself to get slavery ended and to secure the legal protection of the God-given civil rights of all people. Let me give a quote by Lincoln regarding the war and the fallout of the Dred Scott decision. He said, "Fondly do we hope, fervently we pray, that this mighty scourge of war may speedily pass away. Yet if God wills that it continue until all the wealth piled by the bondman's 250 years of unrequited toil be sunk, and until every drop of blood drawn with the lash shall be paid by another drawn with the sword, as was said 3,000 years ago, so still it must be said, the judgments of the Lord are altogether true and righteous." That's actually a quote of Psalm 19, verse 9, because we do reap what we sow. And here in America, our sowing of a low value of human life and abortion on demand, no legal protections for the unborn, and then promiscuity and abortion as a means of birth control, and now this lucrative industry of Planned Parenthood and organ trafficking. So many negatives have been the fallout of our disregard of that moral precept that life is sacred. Now, do you know, again, our nation, I say this so often, but we were birthed, and this is part of what made us unique. This is a part of what has propelled us to greatness and success, prosperity, stability, safety, the precept that there is an objective moral code, and our nation was built in light of that. Now, we're not only not living in it right now, we've got academics and politicians and people of influence fighting the idea of objective morality. But John Locke, hugely influential in the life of the founders. In 1688, in his two treatises of government, he claimed that individuals possess inherent rights, moral rights, and he says that these come from God and nothing can erase this. Now, Jefferson called it inalienable rights. In other words, they can't be taken away. You say, well, they can be taken away. Yes, but not legitimately so. And so in this program, and hearing from Mark rescuing people in danger, we want to say with the strongest possible emphasis, life is sacred, life is a gift from God, and those of us who realize this, we have the obligation and the privilege, really, to stand up for human life and to advocate for the good of others. And because when we honor those around us, made in God's image, we're actually honoring the one whose image they bear, God Himself. Think about these things.
We live in an ever-changing culture that continues to fall away from its moral foundations. The AFA Journal provides a Christian perspective on current issues that are important to your family. Produced by the American Family Association, this monthly magazine is full of articles and stories about people who are making a difference in their community and around the world. Sign up today and receive a free 6-month subscription. Visit afajournal.org or call 1-800-326-4543.
Hi, Alex McFarland here. Listen up. Got some exciting resources to help you in your walk and your witness for Christ. Hey, I want to mention a brand new book that I contributed to. It's called Raised on the Third Day. You've heard us talk about Gary Habermas. He's been on the show, an incredible scholar. There's a book that's just been put out in Habermas's honor. I had the privilege of contributing to this book. This is all about ancient evidence for the life of Jesus, proof of the resurrection. A number of the world's top scholars contributed in honor of the man, Gary Habermas, who is quite literally the expert on the resurrection. Check out this book. We'll talk more about it. Raised on the Third Day, Essays and Scholarship in honor of Gary Habermas. I also want to ask you to please consider supporting Truth for New Generation. We do events, publishing, broadcasting. We're literally speaking into the lives of thousands of people every day of the year. Now, for your tax-deductible gift of at least $50, I'm going to send you 2 books that I wrote. One, 10 Answers for Skeptics, my interviews with atheists and skeptics, how to respond to that. The other is The God You Thought You Knew, responding to 10 common myths about Christianity. For your gift of at least $50, I'll send you these. If you make it $75, I'll throw in the Truth for a New Generation Apologetics t-shirt. It's very cool. And also, don't forget to listen to the greatest podcast in the world, I Hear Ya, ihearya.show. Thanks for watching. God bless.